Hello, this is Jeff from Baron Leathercraft, and today I am going to share with you some techniques that I stumbled into on creating stitching holes and patterns in Affinity Designer 2. If you're not familiar with this software, it is an alternative to Adobe Illustrator. It's used mostly by artists or digital designers to create digital art and digital designs. I stumbled on it because I was looking for a less expensive alternative to Adobe Illustrator. And I'm glad I did, because when I went ahead and attempted to do patterns and stitching holes, I found it to be actually easier to do on this software than I did with Illustrator. Another great thing is there's no subscription, so I don't pay monthly. It's a one flat fee. I'm not affiliated with Affinity, nor do they even know I exist, except for the fact that I just ordered their software. So this is just something, if you're familiar with my site, I'm just sharing this information with you because I know it was helpful to me, and you got to share that information. I'm not really sure what I'm going to title this video yet, but in case I go ahead and title it something like which is better, Affinity or Adobe Illustrator for making stitching holes and patterns, in my opinion, I found that Affinity was better for this. I did create a video on how to create stitching holes and patterns in Adobe Illustrator, so you could check that out after you watch this if you'd like, so you could see the difference. So without any further delay, let's go ahead and share how to make stitching holes and patterns with Affinity Designer 2. When you open the program, it's going to confront you with a new document box, and this is where you choose your work area. I'm going to choose a work area that's kind of large, although you have many templates and options that you can choose from. But today I'm going to go ahead and use a large area. So I'm going to use the architectural area, and that's at the bottom, and it's 18 inches by 12 inches. Now in the center console, you'll see different ways of manipulating the work area that you're going to use. The only thing I'm personally going to change is the DPI. I'm going to change it from 300 to 72 because I'm not looking for a high resolution pattern here. This is just a simple basic outlines with stitching holes. So let's go ahead and choose that. Another option you can choose before I go on is the document units, and this depends on what you like working with. You have all areas of choices here: points, picas, inches, feet, yards, millimeters, centimeters, meters. I'm going to leave it on inches right now, so let's go ahead and jump in by hitting create. Okay, here we are, and this is the interface. This lesson really isn't about how to use Affinity. It's more about how to create stitching holes and patterns within Affinity. So I'm going to be sharing with you the tools that are necessary in order to accomplish that goal. As far as learning how to use Affinity, there are plenty of YouTube videos that teach you how to use this program in detail. We're going to use an example today of a very simple card wallet. So let's go ahead and get started. First, I'm going to go ahead and go to this icon that you see up here, which looks like a magnet. This is your snapping tool. So whenever I create something, it's going to pull to these guidelines that you see, which will make it easy to make certain shapes. And there'll be times you want to turn it on and times you want to turn it off. Right now, I'm going to go ahead and turn it on. I'm going to grab a shape tool, which is right here, which is my rectangle tool. And I'm going to create a box that is going to be 4 by 6, because that's the size I want my card wallet to be. So 4 inches down, which is the width, or I should say the height at this point. And I'm going to go ahead and go to 6 inches there. So our card wallet is going to be horizontal, and it's 6 inches wide and 4 inches tall. This is going to be the size of the card wallet. Right now it's grayed in because it has a fill color. I want to remove that fill color. So I'm going to go up here to the top left where it says fill, click on it, and you see this line right here to the top right. That'll empty it. So now it's empty. At this point, there's no stroke. A stroke is an outline. So if I click off of this, you're not going to see it anymore. There, it's gone. That's because it still exists, but there's no outline and there's no fill. So I'm going to make sure I have my select tool on, which is up here, which is also your move tool. And you could your shortcut key is V for that. And I'm going to click down on the board. I'm going to stretch out to the other side where it will reveal our shape. So now our shape is selected, and I want to go ahead and give it a stroke line, which is an outline. So on the right hand side, there's a panel, and on the panel there are several options on the top: color, swatches, stroke, and appearance. You could set any tools you want up there, but this is the way that the program shows up. So I'm going to go ahead and click stroke, and I'm going to find the width option. And if you notice, it's set to inches right now, but I'm going to go ahead and type 0.35 mm for millimeters, and I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. Now there's an outline. If I click off of it, you can see it. And the outline is 0.14 inches or 0.35 millimeters. Now let's click on the object to highlight it. Now in Illustrator, what you would do at this point is create an offset path from the actual pattern outline. In this program, we do it differently. We're actually going to duplicate this object, and then we're going to take that object and create the offset path. So I'm going to hit Control J, which duplicates the object we have selected right now. Now that we have the object selected, we're going to go ahead and click on what is called the contour tool. It's basically the tool that will create the offset path. So I'll click on that, and you see it open this box radius on top. I want the radius to be 4 millimeters. So I'm going to go ahead and type -4 mm. Mm standing for millimeters. 4 millimeters is basically the equivalent to 1/8 of an inch. So let me go ahead and zoom in on our pattern so we get a better look at it. So now I went ahead and clicked our select tool, so I'm no longer in the offset pattern tool. Now we have the outline of our pattern, and we have our inline stitching line, which represents 4 millimeters in. We want to turn that inner line, the stitching line, into a series of dots, which will represent our stitching pattern. So you want to go ahead and go back to the stroke section and click on this first style. You see dashes. So I'm going to click on dash. And now I'm going to go ahead and click on the width because I want my stitching holes to be 1 millimeter thick. So in other words, your stitching holes are going to be 1 millimeter wide. So I'm going to click 1 mm and hit enter. See, now that line is thicker. And if you also notice, I'm going to zoom in for a second, is that the pattern is a stitch line, but these aren't the shapes we're looking for. And now we're going to go for the shapes that we want. I'll leave it zoomed in for a second so we could see. You want to make sure underneath width that the caps are clicked on round cap, which is your first one, and the join is round join, which is the first one. Now down here is your stitch line matrix. This will decide where your stitch lines fall. These boxes represent your dash pattern. The first box is going to represent the gap, and then the second box, where I'm going to put the 4, represents the distance of the space between each dot. And that is how we create the pattern. The rest of the boxes can be added to create unusual and elaborate dot and dash patterns, which are not necessary for what we're doing. I'm going to start with a 0, and then the next one I'm going to put a 4. I want my stitch holes to be 4 millimeters apart. So when I click on 4 and hit enter, now they're 4 millimeters apart. Now, that 4 there doesn't actually mean millimeters. What it's doing is taking your width line, for example, which was 1 millimeters, and multiplying it. So because I used 1 millimeter, it's going to multiply everything by 1 millimeter. And for that reason, when I clicked on 4 in there, that became 4 millimeters apart. So let me go ahead and zoom back and bring this more into the center. I'll go a little closer. There we go. Okay, now we have our stitching line. Now let's go ahead and make sure all these boxes are even, because when you're working with sewing, you want even holes, especially when you're doing something like a card wallet, because Let me pull a guide out here, and I'm going to shut off the snap tool so it doesn't snap to the grid. It's going to just slide wherever I want it. You see holes on the top and bottom? You want them to be able to be equal, because say I create a pocket in here. The pocket's going to stop at one point. Let's just pretend it's at this guideline. And you want the stitching holes on the top of the pocket to be equal. Because if one was higher than the other, it's not going to look nice. It's not going to be symmetrical at this point, and it will make the stitching a little awkward. So you want it to be balanced. And they have an excellent tool to balance it, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. Let me first show you how all these holes are lining up at this point. And they're lining up particularly mostly because we're not making a complicated mathematical equation here. All our corners are right angles, so it knows exactly to put the stitching holes in the corners, and everything works out perfect. Things get a little wacky when you start using corners that are rounded, but I found this program makes it very simple, and that's part of why I'm really liking Affinity when it comes to making designs for pattern. So let's go ahead and round some corners. Let me give us some space. I brought it down a little bit. I'm going to hit Control A, or if you want, you could go ahead and use the Move tool and go ahead and click and grab everything and then unclick it. So everything is chosen now. Now I want to go ahead and change the corners. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this tool, which is the corner tool, or you can hit C. Now you see that they have these corners, little squares. Now I could choose one corner if I want. And if you notice, there's a little, if you look at my mouse right now, there's just the arrow, but if I bring it close to the corner, there comes a little half moon that shows up underneath it. That means it's ready to alter that corner. And I can go ahead and click on my mouse, left mouse button, and pull down, and it'll create a circle which represents the circumference of that corner. Obviously right now it's only doing one corner because I only had one chosen. So that's what it looks like if I was to just choose to one corner and alter it. And that's how you alter just one corner. You might want a pattern that does that, and that's how it does it. But right now I'm going to hit Control Z to undo that, because I actually want to be able to manipulate all the corners at once. So I know that I could with my corner tool selected, I could go ahead and hit my left mouse button and drag over it. And now if you see, all the corners are selected. Now I could type the radius I want in there, and if you have a specific radius you want, but I'm not looking for a specific radius right now. I'm going to just move it on my own until I find a pleasing radius and one that works well with the stitching hole. So I'm going to go ahead and grab with my mouse, hit my left mouse button, and you're going to see there's going to be a circle now in every corner, because it's going to be manipulating every corner at the same. Now if you notice right now, if you look at the stitching line, there's no hole, there's no stitching hole in the corners, which is useless to us. If we went ahead and did that, it would look terrible. What's beautiful about Affinity, as I pull it, it'll generate, and there, you see, there, it generated a corner. And the reason why it's doing this is because I have what is considered, in the stroke section, there's a button that's called balance, but I'm going to get to that in a second. First, we're going to go ahead and finish the corners. All right, I'm happy with this curve right now, and there's a stitching hole in the corner, which is good. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the move tool just to unclick off of everything. Now I'm going to go back to the corner tool, and I'm going to highlight everything. Now, if you notice, and once again, I'm going to grab every corner. And up here, it shows you the radius. And right now, it's 0.372 inches. Those are what the corners are. Now, I want to make sure that this radius number is at the lowest potential number that still reveal these corner pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and take this 72 and bring it down to let's say 65, and see what happens to the corners. Hit enter. Okay, if you noticed, what it did was it pulled all the dots closer together, yet still the corner piece is there. I want to bring it down to the point where the corner disappears so I could go one number higher to make it reappear. That way we know that the stitching holes are as close to being balanced as possible. So from 65, I'm going to go ahead and change it to 60 now and see what happens. They're still there, so let's go ahead and change it to 50. See, now it's gone. So let's go ahead and change it from 50 to 55. It's still gone. So let's go and change it to 57. Still gone. So let's go ahead and change it to 60. There we go. So that's good. We have a radius of 0.36 inches and the stitching holes look really good. Let's go ahead and make sure that they are still symmetrical and balanced. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the arrow key and I'm going to drag a guide and I'm going to place it along the stitching holes. Let's move up a little closer. And if you notice, once again, these are balanced. It balanced itself out and they're all balanced, which is nice. Take a look at that. Take a look at that. And the reason why that's happening is because in Affinity, let's go ahead and click on the stitching tool. In Affinity, there is this button right here called Balanced. Now, when I click that, it actually balances these lines so they're even and symmetrical. So if I unclick it, let's keep an eye on the corners and the lines itself. There. Now they're, let's see, now look. See up there compared to down there? They're no longer balanced. That's the beauty I found in this program is you hit it balanced, hit the balance button, bam, they're all symmetrical. And because I went ahead and changed the radius to the lowest number possible where the corners show up, it makes all these lines much more even to each other. There's also another feature that we have available to us. If I didn't use this balance, I also have this phase tool. Now watch as I use this phase tool, watch the dots. See how they're manipulating? So that could help too. But if you notice, they're just less balanced. Like look how close these are and it's not in the center. You could try to work it to the center. Like for example, now this one's in the center and this one it looks really good. But the one here is no good and the one here is no good. I found this is just an option to give you an ability to manipulate these stitching lines more. But I found that as soon as you click balance, bam, all those stitching lines go exactly where they're necessary. Okay, so now that we have a balanced stitching line and we have our wallet, with the stitching line, I'm going to go ahead and back up a little, give us a little space. I'm going to create the pockets now. Now the pockets obviously are going to be the same height because you want it to match. So the simplest way to do that is I'm going to click on the actual wallet frame, which you can click on inside the layers panel, or you can go ahead and click on it with the move tool with your mouse. Now that's highlighted. And I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to hit Control J. Now it has created that same shape and it's overlapping on top of the other one. And it also chose it. So now I can grab this line and I'm going to go ahead and shrink it. And we're going to make this, now if you look down here, these in your transform box, it's showing you the width. I'm going to bring it to almost this stitching line. So right now it's at 2.239 inches. So that's the size of this pocket right now. But I don't like the fact that these corners are curved like that. You could leave it like that if you want, but I want to change that. So I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to go ahead and click on the curve button again, or Control C, and I'm going to use my mouse to drag, click on the left button and drag. Now you see these circles here, these represent the circumference of these curves. And since I clicked both of these by dragging on top of it, I'm going to click one of these circles and just pull it out. Bam. And now there's no more curve. And if you notice, this is why we keep the stitching holes balanced, is because when I stitch it, this stitch is going to go from the pocket to the body of the wallet symmetrically on both sides. I'll bring that up. See? Both sides, same area. All right, now we have our pocket, but it's a boring pocket. So I'm going to go ahead and make just a simple manipulation just to give you an idea how to do it. And I'm going to turn back on the snapping tool, which is the magnet up there. Now I'm going to go to what we call the node tool, or you could hit A to get to it, which is your shortcut. And I'm going to place some nodes. I'm going to find these areas, for example. Now that the pocket is chosen, I'm going to place a node. You see how the red line showed up when I put my mouse over the particular grid? Those are great indicators. You're right on the grid. It is snapped to the grid. So I'm going to create a node there, and I'm going to create a node at the next one. Those represent inches, by the way. And I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing at the back too to keep it symmetrical. Now I'm going to click on two of these nodes, the ones in the center, because I'm going to manipulate them. Now I could grab them from any area and go ahead and pull down, and it creates a curve. There's so many different ways that you can manipulate it. I'm going to hit Control Z though. I'm going to show you what happens when you grab it from the actual node. When I grab it from the actual node, it comes down balanced and symmetrical. I'm going to bring it down to, let's say, that looks like a healthy amount. Okay, well now we have a shape, but I don't like these hard corners, so I want to create some shape to them. I want to round them off. So I'm going to go ahead and hit my corner tool again, and I'm also going to click on the pocket. Now you see here these squares that represent the nodes have come up. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to grab the ones in the middle because I don't want the ends to curve. And now that I have them all selected, whatever I do to one will happen to all of them. I'll go ahead and hold my mouse over one, the half moon shows up, and now I'm going to pull. And you see it creates the circle, which is representing how it's going to curve. If you look at the circles, that's going to curve around that circumference. So that looks good to me. I'm going to let go. And I'm going to unclick on it so we can see what it looks like. See, now they're curves, and we have a decent looking pocket, and we have balanced stitching lines. Of course, we're going to need two pockets. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and click on the Move tool. I'm going to click on that particular pocket to highlight it. Of course, once again, you can do that in the Layers section. There's several ways of duplicating it. The shortcut is Control J. So there, it's duplicated and it's also been highlighted. Now I'm going to go ahead and slide that one up a little bit so you can see. It's going to snap to the side so it won't manipulate, but if you want to keep it from further manipulating, when you grab this pocket, you can also hold Shift and it will just slide forward. So there's that other pocket, but it's not shaped in the right direction. I want to flip it horizontally. So I'm going to go up to Layer, I'm going to go to Transform, and I'm going to go Flip horizontally. And bam, there it is. Now I'm going to go and pull it back and bring it to where it needs to be. Now I'm going to unclick it so you can see things better. Let me get rid of this guideline. And there you go. You have your card wallet. You have the stitching holes, you have the body, and you have the pockets. Now, you could actually, from this point on, hit Control A and then Control C to copy it. Now, we're not done yet, but this is your basic pattern with stitching holes. You can bring it right now into LightBurn. And here, we're in LightBurn now, and I hit Control V. There's your pattern. I'm going to zoom up on it. And at this point, what I'd want to do is, because you can't cut it like that because it's just going to slice your wallet up into pieces, I'm going to go ahead and hit Ungroup. And now everything is separate. But before I just start pulling everything apart, I'm going to highlight this wallet along with the holes. I'm going to grab those two external holes as well. Let me make sure that it's ungrouped entirely. There we go. Now I'm going to go ahead and left click and grab just that amount right there. And I'm going to take that. I'm going to hit Control D to duplicate. So now there's a duplication of the holes and the pocket. I'm going to go ahead and drag that in there. Now it's over there. And I want to go ahead and get rid of these extra holes that are hanging out. All right. Let me back up a little. There's our pocket. Now I want to do the same thing on the other side. Zoom in. Go ahead and grab that. Duplicate it. Control D. Let me give you some space here. Go ahead and grab it properly this time. Move it over. And you see this time we didn't get those external stitching holes, so we don't need to delete them. So I could group it right now, but really I want to continue to manipulate this, and I'll show you why. At this point, these inner pockets inside the body we can get rid of, because if we left them there, it would just either draw them when we used our laser, or it would cut them depending on what we want to do. So now we have separate bodies from stitching holes. Like for example, you see I can pull that around, which is not what we want to do. I just want to show you how everything's separate. So let me go ahead and put that back by hitting Control Z. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight by clicking on just the borders, each one of these shapes. So I'm going to hold Shift down and I'm going to click this one and this one as well. So now all three of those are highlighted. And I'm going to go ahead and make them a cut. So right now, as default for my particular LightBurn, I'm going to make them red, which as you see shows up as a line, and it's at 400 millimeters a minute and 80% power, which means it's going to cut that. So let me go ahead and shut off the output and the show of that, and we're left with just the holes. Now I want to highlight all the holes, and I'm going to go ahead and make them their own layer, and I'm going to make them blue, which actually has the same settings as the red line because they're going to be cuts as well. But I want them separate, and the reason why I want them separate is because when I do go to cut this, I want them to cut the dotted lines, the stitching holes first. Because if I cut out the pattern first, the leather can manipulate itself. It could fall due to gravity because it'll already be cut. So if I cut the holes first, it leaves a lot more stability for everything to be cut accurately. So right now, there's my pattern. And if I wanted to, now I want to group these particular objects. So I'm going to group that pocket. I'm going to group this pocket. And now you can place them in strategic positions to where when you cut, you're not wasting material. This is just a quick example. There you go. Now if I cut these, my leather is going to have to be, I already know what size of leather I need to cut out. So there you go. It's as simple as that. But we're not done because let me go ahead and go back to Affinity. Now we're going to do what we basically did in LightBurn because we don't want to leave the pattern like this. You want to complete the pattern so we have it in the future to be able to manipulate it when necessary. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I want to make this stitching line into individual dots. So I'm going to go ahead. There's a few ways to go about doing this. I'm going to choose to show you the simplest way in my opinion, which is to make sure that it is highlighted by clicking on it. Go to Layer. Then I'm going to go ahead and go to Convert to Curves. And then I'm going to go to Expand Stroke. And then I'm going to go ahead and go to Geometry and then Divide. Now, if you noticed in the layers section, now there's many more objects now. It just individualized all these dots. So if I go to the move tool, you will see that if I click on them, they're now all individual dots, and I can move them all individually. I'm going to put that back, Control Z. Now, basically, let me back up a little bit. Now we're going to do exactly what we did inside LightBurn. I'm going to go ahead and left click with my mouse while I'm in the move, and I'm going to go ahead and highlight a particular amount. I'm going to hit Control J to duplicate, and then I'm going to drag this away. And since I brought these extra dots, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of them because you don't want to have them there. And now I'm going to go ahead and group these. It's the safest choice. Hit group right there in the left corner. So now this pocket is all ready to do its thing. I'm going to delete this pocket here because it's no longer necessary to be there. And we're going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. Let me zoom in a little so people can see. And this time, let's go ahead and wrap around and let's try to pass that. Let's not pick up those extra holes, although it doesn't matter. You could always delete them. Nope. There we go. This is why I do it, because it's just simpler to get rid of them. All right, now that that's selected, I'm going to hit Control J to duplicate. I'm going to drag it off. And so, yeah, it didn't pick up those holes. So let's go ahead and surround that one by highlighting it and hit group. Let's get rid of this other pocket. And there we go. Now we have this wallet is all set up. You could save it like this. That way it's easy to manipulate it in the future if you wanted to open this up and change the pockets. Okay, let's go ahead and check our work, because our goal is for these pockets and the stitching holes to line up with the main body of the pocket. So I have snap on right now, so let's see if we can simply just snap them into place. If not, we could always align them with the alignment tools. Let me go ahead and zoom in a little bit. There we go. Well, let's zoom in. There we go. All the stitching holes are in the right spot. All the corners line up well. Let's do the other pocket. Another way to line it, I'll use the other way just to show you, is I'll click on both of them and we'll go ahead to the alignment section and I'll click on align left. There you go, and align, upper. And there we go. Stitching holes all match. And there you go. That's how I go about making stitching holes and patterns in Affinity Designer 2. I hope this information was helpful. You know what? One thing I thought was pretty cool about this software is they have a free trial, and it's 6 months. It's 180 days. So they're truly giving you the opportunity to learn the software before you actually make a purchase. And the purchase price, at least at this point, at this moment, because of the sale, was very inexpensive. So I'm happy with my purchase. Once again, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope it was helpful to you. If you don't mind giving the video a like, it's helpful. It's helpful to all the YouTubers when you go ahead and like their video. If you're interested in leather crafting or laser work, go ahead and subscribe. I appreciate it. And once again, be good to each other. We make a difference in each other's lives. So let's do it for the positive. Peace. Take care.